I welcome you to the continuation of Central Committee meeting number 6 for today, Tuesday, October 15, 2024. I want to give a special welcome to the Minister of Justice and his support staff here this afternoon. We have established a quorum of 9 members. I invite you to stand for a moment of silence. Thank you. I have received notice of lateness from the member Grisha Heiliger Martin. Are there any other notifications at this time from the floor of Parliament? That not being the case, we can, yes, that is the case. MP Viren Kotai, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon to the Minister of Justice, to my colleagues, those tuning in via social media. I just wanted to bring a matter of concern to the floor. We know, and I'm glad we have the Minister of Justice in front of us because we are a very small island. The crime rate and the wave we are facing is disproportionate. Supermarkets and jewelry stores seem to be the aggressive targets for far too long. Robberies are occurring on a weekly to bi-weekly basis. We have to really question the accountability of our operations, the protection of our residents and our tourists alike. We have had individuals assaulted on the streets, in stores, so much that it actually has become a norm. This is saddening that more negativity is being shunned with our island. I would urge, Minister of Justice, as you're here, that we engage with the complete justice chain to ensure more patrolling and presence on our streets. The FCC event is scheduled for next week. High season is approaching. Safety and security cannot be negotiable, and it's a really concerning matter. And I'd also like to give my condolences to the lost ones over the past weekend, and yeah, that's it for me, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Kotai. I see MP La Cruz is requesting the floor. MP La Cruz, you have the floor.
A blessed afternoon, Madam Chair Lady, to the Griffier, Honourable Minister and his support staff, members of Parliament. Madam Chair Lady, I'd like to send out condolences to the Brown family. He was a friend, known him for a lot of years, and to the families of the young lady who passed away also during the weekend. Family also very close. And to the Minister of Justice, I hope a message went out to the schools or to the school of that young lady that her friends have someone to talk to while this incident took place, because it's difficult, it's difficult on her friends at the same time. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, MP La Cruz. And I now give the floor to MP Doran. MP Doran, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Good afternoon to you, my colleagues, the Honourable Minister's support staff, and a special good afternoon to the people of St. Martin. I would also like to echo my condolences to the family of the young lady that lost her life in such a tragic way. I know that mental health and different factors is something that plague our community, is things that we speak about, is things that we try to do our utmost to deal with, but at the end of the day, it's not inevitable, and I just would like to wish the family much strength, and I hope that, as my colleague before me mentioned, that there's ways and means that we can look into, speaking to our young people so that they do not take this severe ultimate route. I would also like to echo my condolences for the Brown family. It hit home because I know that this is a staff member of the Ministry of Rummy, and that was one of the staff members when we had launched the operation Bring Them Back. We went to the Netherlands, and we were lucky enough to get 2 staff members hired, and he was one of them, who just recently started to work. I know that a lot of people are still in disbelief. I would just like to wish the family much, much strength during this difficult time of bereavement. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity.
Thank you, MP Duran. MP La Cruz, I still see your light lit. Okay. Okay. Thank you, members of parliament, for those notifications. I can only but join those of you who have expressed your condolences and sympathy to the family and friends of the late Mr. Brown, I have to say, and his companion, the one who, along with him, lost her life. To both families and friends, I share condolences and wish the families much strength. And I also join the words of condolences to the family and friends of the teenager who took her own life, and as a parliament, and one that has been through various members of parliament expressing the need for us to more than talk about the mental health of our community, but are also desirous of seeing something done, and has expressed their wish and desire as members of parliament to work hand in hand with government as well as the institutions on St. Martin who look after those persons suffering with some affliction of mental health, that this parliament has on more than one occasion expressed its position that the mental health care on St. Martin is a priority for this parliament as a whole, and again has expressed its desire to work with government and other institutions to really tackle this multifaceted part of health, namely our mental health, our collective mental health. So to those suffering a loss, to those going through mental health issues, do realize that there is assistance to be had, not only from professionals, but also and especially to the young ones amongst us. Find someone to talk to. There are persons within your family circles, at your schools, who will have a listening ear. Please talk about your feelings, especially when you feel that you are overwhelmed by your feelings. So thank you once again, members of parliament, for those notifications. And we now go over to the agenda point for this meeting, which is the national ordinance, the draft national ordinance, amending the ordinance of the budget for 2024. This national ordinance is, of course, called National Ordinance Budget Amendment 2024. It is National Ordinance number 181 of the parliamentary year 24-25. It is registered on the document IS 124 and dated the 4th of October 2024. So just briefly going over to where we are in the handling of this draft national ordinance. As I mentioned, it was received on October the 4th, 2024 from the government of St. Martin. Of course, a copy of the document is not only online for members of parliament, but has also been shared in hard copy. The Central Committee meeting commenced on Thursday, October the 10th, with the Minister of Finance giving a presentation on that draft national ordinance. And then, of course, members of parliament were given the opportunity to pose questions. We adjourned until Friday, October the 11th, when the Minister of Finance returned to provide answers to the questions, followed by the Prime Minister and Minister of General Affairs, as well as the Minister of Romi, who provided answers to questions posed by members of parliament. After some additional clarifications from the members, the meeting was adjourned until today, Tuesday, October the 15th. So at this time, we have with us the Minister of Justice, who I welcomed earlier to Parliament, And the minister is here, Minister Lyndon Lewis, to answer the questions posed by members of Parliament. Minister, welcome once again, and you have the floor.
Good afternoon, Honorable Chair. Good afternoon, members of Parliament, and most of all, good afternoon, St. Martin. My condolences as well goes out to the bereaved of those individuals that passed over the weekend. Through you, Madam Chair, the questions from MP De Weaver. Budget vacancies count in 2024 was 53 personnel. Now it is down to 3. The change in the cost associated is a significant amount of 2.8 million. If they can explain why we are not budgeted for 50 persons less than in March 2024. The reductions were necessary as the funds as projected in the approved 2024 budget would not be collected due to the pending legislation not yet finalized. Further, the tax collection is lagging behind in comparison to last year's budget. Without these adjustments, the government would lack the financial resources. Additionally, these adjustments are crucial to secure, among other things, the 16 million euros contribution from the Netherlands for the prison project. If St. Martin failed to secure its own contribution, a loan request via the Netherlands, we would lose the Dutch contribution as well. This would mean that St. Martin would need to secure 75 million guilders instead of currently requested 43 million, resulting in an additional 1 million annually in interest costs for the country for perhaps the next 15 years based on an interest rate of 3.4%. The loan request is contingent on approval from the CFT, which is granted through a positive Article 12 advice on the budget. If the budget is deemed unrealistic by the CFT, we would not receive this positive advice. Failure to make these adjustments as advised by the CFT would have resulted in losing the funding from the Netherlands, as these funds are contingent upon St. Martin securing its portion of the funding. The total cuts for justice were 3.8 million, of which 1.5 million guilders on the personnel vacancies that were not filled yet at the time cuts were made, and 2.3 million guilders for materiële kosten, primarily under the goods and services. Through you, Madam Chair, the questions and answers for MP Otley. Cut in personnel. What is the reason for the cuts, and how do we supplement these cuts? If I may read, it still goes with the same answer from MP De Weaver. The reductions were necessary as the funds as projected in the approved budget 2024 would not be collected due to the pending legislation is not finalized. Further, the tax collection is lagging behind in comparison to last year's budget. Without these adjustments, the government would lack the financial resources. Additionally, these adjustments are crucial to secure, among other things, the 16 million euros contribution from the Netherlands for the prison project. If St. Martin failed to secure its own contribution, a loan request via the Netherlands, we would lose the Dutch contribution as well. This would mean that St. Martin would need to secure 75 million guilders instead of the currently requested 43 million, resulting in an additional 1 million annually in interest costs for the country, perhaps the next 15 years, based on an interest rate of 3.4%. The loan request is contingent on the approval from CFT, which is granted through a positive Article 12 advice on the budget. If the budget is deemed unrealistic by CFT, we would not receive this positive advice. Failure to make these adjustments, as advised by the CFT, would have resulted in losing the funding from the Netherlands, as these funds are contingent upon St. Martin securing its portion of the funding. The total cuts for justice were 3.8 million, of which 1.5 million guilders on the personnel, which includes the vacancies that were not filled, yet at the time cuts were made, and 2.3 million for materiële kosten, primarily on the goods and services. What is the total amount needed to pay the justice workers with these national decrees being signed? A total budgeted of 44,588,500 guilders for the entire process. What is the monthly and yearly increase? How do we plan on maintaining this increase? We have factored in a 15% contingency in the budgeted amount to proactively address any potential increases. This ensures that we are well prepared to handle any unforeseen circumstances and maintain financial stability. We are in a deficit of the police officers, which means we are in dire need of hiring. What is the plan to encourage police officers? This will also be an increase in personnel. The Corps Police of St. Martin has updated its recruitment strategy to focus on using social media and to target young talent from St. Martin. The new approach involves having young talents as the face of the recruitment campaign. In addition, police schooling is now free of charge. The students will receive an allowance while studying. In Vromi, 18.2 million was taken out of the CapEx for land purchasing. What are the ministry's positions on the cuts made, specifically NSGs of each department, especially the justice sector? The Ministry of Justice embraces the financial challenges brought about by the reduction of 18.2 million from the CapEx for the land purchasing. In response, the ministry is adopting a strategic approach by identifying projects that have not yet commenced or vacancies that are unlikely to be filled in 2024. This will allow for a reassessment of priorities while ensuring the essential services and initiatives continue with minimal disruption. Each department within the justice sector is working closely with relevant stakeholders to ensure that any adjustments made reflect the overall goals of public safety. 2, I would like the names of all consultants hired by each minister. I would like to know the contractual pricing for each consultant hired by each minister and how many cabinet staff are in each cabinet. The Ministry of Justice has 5 cabinet members. The consultants is a perfect image, is budgeted for 49,000 and is paid in 7 installments of 7,000. Innova Quest for 48,000, which is paid in 6 installments of 8,000 guilders. Duncan and Brandon for budgeted amount of 50,000 for the retainer fee. Mariflex Attorney and Consultants BV, which is budgeted for 72,200 annually. And Bush Lawyer NV, which is budgeted for 37,200 also annually. Through you, Madam Chair, the continuation of MP Otley's question. Holding cells in Phillipsburg, there was an international court case held. Holding cells are inhumane. Will UNOPS prepare a budget for the holding cells in town? Will money be provided? I don't see anything in the budget. The answer for that, Madam Chair, funds have been allocated for the repair of the cells, and the NRPB is responsible for the project management. The project is currently in the tendering phase. Additionally, BZK has provided funding for emergency repairs on the cells. The emergency repairs will commence next week, starting with the initial phase, which involves an assessment. Through you, Madam Chair, the answers and questions, or the questions and answers from MP Duran. How open for allowing ex-uniform officers to have permission to carry a firearm, and when they are retired, to have their firearm for 5 years? Is a special budget to be allocated for it? Can a structure be put in place for them to have the firearm when they retire? This should be addressed through a policy or a memorandum. Former officers are not automatically eligible for a gun permit. No budget is required for this. Through you, Madam Chair, the questions posed by MP Roseberg and the answers thereto. Are there any justice workers that have received payment already? 244 justice workers have thus far received payment. And of course, that is based on the national decree that they have recently received. How much percentage-wise, based on the signed national decrees, have been paid, and how much still remaining? Thus far, 60%, roughly 250 remains. Payments of justice workers expecting. When can they expect the payment? Once the national decree is signed and the employee signs for the pickup at the div, the payment is expected on the following payroll. What is the total amount budgeted for the total amount budgeted? What is the total amount budgeted for? The total amount budgeted is 44.5 million guilders. Where in the budget can it be found? When can justice workers who receive their national decree receive their first payment? Once the letter of agreement is signed, the employee signs for the pickup at div, the payment is processed on the following payroll. How is it the Minister of Justice ensuring growth and safety while the budget has been cut? Every year, the Ministry of Justice holds a conference to present the annual plan and budget challenges. These discussions help in generating ideas for the way forward and setting priorities to ensure safety with minimal resources. However, it can be difficult to deliver results when resources are limited. To address St. Martin's border management challenges amid personnel shortage at the Immigration Border Protection Services, leveraging the Versterking Grenstoezicht protocol and taking a holistic multi-agency approach is essential. The VGT's focus on integrated enforcement, intelligence, and investigations can help streamline operations and reduce inefficiencies caused by the departmental silos. The sharing of information must get a renewed focus. Negotiating with BZK for increased support is critical, given the reliance of cooperative efforts on St. Martin's standing. This support could address personnel shortages through temporary deployments of regional manpower sharing, while also upgrading the foreign detention center to meet the CARINET needs. The newly launched automated border control systems at the Princess Juliana International Airport will ease immigration processing, making up for staffing gaps. Additionally, implementing the API or PNR legislation will ensure the mandatory use of this technology, further improving border security and operational efficiency. Regular assessments under the VGT protocol will help monitor progress and adapt to future needs. Crime Fund. Based on the law, it mentions every year by submitting the budget, the minister needs to submit a beleid plan, where it significantly mentions which projects will be tackled in that year, including the finances. Where is the plan, and where can I see it in the budget? The current plan is still under development and has not yet been finalized. What is the amount in the crime fund? Where have the amounts been going to? The balance as today is 8.2 million guilders, which includes the BZK funding balance of 3.6 million guilders. Voor versterking grenstoezicht, bestuurlijk aanpak, ondermijning en bestuurlijk aanpak. Spent placement of 2 individuals at Brasami, B14 Measure Country Package, FIU, Work Stream 1 Effectiveness and Compliance Training, en bestuurlijk aanpak ondermijning. Draft legislation. There is a new draft legislation in the making. How far is that draft legislation, and when can it be expected? The draft legislation is currently undergoing legal review. It is not clear which projects are currently on the crime fund. Budget-wise, where can they be found? The aforementioned will be formulated and incorporated into the 2025 budget. Police cars are being purchased through a crime fund. Based on what was that decision made? The CF is dedicated to combating crime, and acquiring vehicles is crucial in achieving this goal. I made a decision to do so. Additionally, vehicles are being purchased through the CAPEX 2023 budget, and the process for tendering is being prepared. Were they budgeted for? Yes, through the CAPEX 2023. What is the reason that the Minister of Justice decided to use the crime fund? Why wasn't it decided the same way that Ministry of Justice decided to tackle the holding cells through BZK? Why was it chosen to do it through the crime fund? The ministry has many vehicles that are over 4 years old and more. The amount budgeted via the CAPEX is not sufficient, seeing this deficit. As such, a decision was made to purchase through the CF, as new vehicles are considered tools to combat crime. Holding cells. How do we make sure there is no violation of the holding cells? Yearly maintenance should be included in the budget and is managed by the Ministry of General Affairs. Currently, there is no system in place for yearly maintenance. What is being done budget-wise to tackle that matter? Where will those funds be coming from? Funds have been allocated for the repair of the cells, and the NRPB is responsible for the project management, which is currently in the tendering phase. Additionally, BZK has provided funding for emergency repairs on the cell complex. The emergency repairs will commence next week, starting with the initial phase, which involves assessment. Through you, Madam Chair, the questions from MP Brugge. The BOA program started in various departments. Is that a project that has been completely cut out of the budget, or did I overlook it? The vacancy for the training coordinator position is currently open. In relation to the BOA program, a course on outline is required for the course to be certified by the Ministry of ECYS. Once this is attained, then the program can commence. For each ministry, what projects or services would be affected by each of these cuts? Immigration, border, and protection services. The budget cuts have significantly impacted several critical projects within the immigration and border protection sectors, most notably due to the inability to fill essential vacancies in 2024. These include foreign detention center staffing, the plan to hire 6 full-time equivalent FTAs for the Foreign Detention Center was directly affected. Without these additional resources, the center is currently under-resourced, which hampers its ability to manage detainees effectively and safely. This has led to operational delays, reduced capacity to process detainees, and increased strain on existing staff. Vacancies for key leadership roles. Section Head of Admissions and Residency. This role is vital for overseeing the processing of residency permits and managing a smooth admissions process. The lack of the section head has caused a slowdown in application processing times, delayed decision-making, and created gaps in the leadership that are affecting service delivery and policy enforcement. The section head for border control. This role is vital, especially with PJIA reopening, and the changes that are coming will require the adjustment of border control policies and the discussion partnerships with PJIA management to ensure seamless synchronization of immigration processes with business processes. The leadership in this area grants us the ability to ensure effective coordination across border control operations, adjust to challenges of irregular migration, implement enhanced security measures, and provide adequate oversight of entry points. These positions are central to maintaining efficient and secure immigration processes. The delay in filling these roles not only affects the functioning of individual departments, but also has the cascading effect on broader initiatives aimed at improving immigration control and border security. The Corps Police of St. Martin, the cuts have significantly impacted the provision of police services over an extended period. This has resulted in hazardous working environment for the personnel due to the inability to provide essential resources such as vehicles and protective gear. The Customs Department, and due to the cuts, the Customs Department is faced with extreme personnel shortage. A total of 30 additional personnel is needed according to the function book to ensure proper functioning of the department. This includes policy advisors and judicial policy advisors. Due to the current ongoing investigation of staff of the Customs Department, the staff shortage is increased. The cuts also affect the acquisition of essentials like uniforms and needed tactical gear, such as bulletproof vests, riot shoes, and flashlights, etc. With the cuts, training is also affected, which, when absent, hampers their functioning on all levels. And this concludes the questions and the answers to the honorable MPs.
Thank you, Minister Lewis, for those answers to questions posed by members of Parliament as they regard the Ministry of Justice. Of course, now the MPs will have the opportunity to respond to some of the answers given, as well as ask any other questions they might have. Members of Parliament, I ask your cooperation in asking the ministers questions, that you try to lump them together as much as possible per ministry. It helps us with the recording of your questions. Of course, you know, you could have forgotten one or two, but if you could try for the brunt of them to put them together, it will definitely help the process following the questions and answers here verbally. So with that, I now look and I see that we have MP De Weaver, who has some questions or comments regarding the Ministry of Justice. And we also ask that our technician checks us here to give the Member of Parliament, Heliger Martin, to make sure that she can take part in the discussions. But in the meantime, while we get that going, we have MP De Wever. MP De Wever, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Good afternoon to you, Minister, and your support staff, and all my colleagues here, and those viewing and listening. Minister, thanks for the answer. I just wanted to make sure then that the cut that we saw in the 50 had nothing to do with additional persons related to the changes in the function book. That's all it was. It didn't sound like it did from the answers, but I also had the answers from the first time that this budget was passed. So that's why I wanted to just make sure, clarify or verify that there was nothing in there that would affect function book changes related to all the work that had to be done for the persons to bring them up to proper standing within the function book. Thank you very much.
Thank you, MP De Wever. I now give the floor to MP Doran. MP Doran, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon to the Honorable Minister once again, all my colleagues, and everyone tuned in. Madam Chair, I remember asking a question with regards to tint, but I'm not sure if I heard the answer to it. If not, I can repeat the question. The question was basically along the lines like, gone are the days where people say that tinted vehicles cause crime, etc. Can the ministry look into a way to generate revenue by charging, through you, Madam Chair, by charging persons that want to use tint, whether it's an extra 50 guilders or 100 guilders, whatever is determined after the study is done, in order to generate more revenue for the coffers? And besides that, I would like clarification based on the question that I asked, based on ex-uniform officers being allowed to carry their firearms. My question was along the lines of, is the ministry open to it? The response was a policy would have to be made, but I would like to know, is the ministry open to allowing this? And what are the thoughts in terms of reaching this goal? Thank you for the opportunity, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Doran. MP Roseberg, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Blessed day, Secretary General. Blessed day, Minister and support staff, and a blessed to my colleagues and the people of St. Martin. Thank you for your answers, Minister, to you, Madam Chair. Some of my questions weren't answered, or I haven't heard it, but I will reach to that. In regards to the justice workers, thank you for clarifying that matter and also answering those questions. My questions and clarification is more focused on the crime fund. If I understood correctly, through you, Madam Chair, the Minister mentioned that there is no, based on the law, there should be an annual plan, but there is currently no annual plan or it's not finalized. So I would like to know how it's possible that there is no policy plan based on the law. It needs to be there, but yet the crime fund has been used in the past and is currently being used without a policy plan. So if that can be clarified. Also, I would like to know, Madam Chair, how is it possible that there is 3.6 million guilders of BZK in the crime fund? Like, how is that possible? I don't understand, Madam Chair. I understood from the Minister that there's 8.2 million guilders currently in the crime fund, but how is it possible that the BZK funding, which is not meant to prevent crime, unless I'm being corrected that it is, that it is currently in the crime fund? Other than that, I understood that the previous projects, one of those was placement in Brasami. I would like to know how that is possible. I believe it wasn't under the current minister, but yeah, unfortunately, I need to ask the current minister how it's possible that placement on the Brasami, that the crime fund was used for that. And what were the other projects that the crime fund was used for? It went a little bit too fast. I didn't get those pointers. Is it correct that 4 million guilders have been spent of the crime fund through you, Madam Chair? And if so, what was that amount spent on? I asked for those projects. I didn't get it, or I didn't hear it, and I would like to get the exact amount. So let's say placement in Brasami, based on what was that a crime prevention project, and how much was spent on Brasami, and then the other projects. I also mentioned, or I also asked, through you, Madam Chair, to get the detailed plan of the previous years, or if there isn't a plan, if I can receive based on what those projects or based on what legal basis those projects were executed. And according to me, Madam Chair, it needs to be placed in a national decree. If I'm wrong, please provide me the detailed information based on what those projects were executed, and to receive a list of those projects. Now, to the police vehicles, Madam Chair, I understood that the minister mentioned that it was budgeted for, but unfortunately it's not enough, and that the crime fund will be used for the remaining amount. I would like to know through you, Madam Chair, how much, because I asked that question, but I didn't get the answer, maybe I missed it. How much will it cost to use part of the crime fund for the remaining cars? So how much cars will be purchased through the budget, and how much will be purchased through the crime fund, and for what amount? And after purchasing those cars, what is the remaining amount that will remain in the crime fund after the purchase? Those were my questions for now, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Roosberg. I don't see any other member at this time, unless MP Brug is trying to get the floor. Yes, he is. I give the floor to MP Brug.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair Lady. Good afternoon, colleagues. Good afternoon, St. Martin. Good afternoon, Honorable Minister of Justice and your support staff. Thank you very much for the answers that you provided for my questions. It was very detailed. Just a bit of clarification. With regard to the cuts, was it you as minister that decided for the cuts, or was it was it you as minister yourself directly was instrumental in the cuts, or was it the Minister of Finance or someone else, or a different organization within the ministry? The reason I ask this later on, I want to address the correct person with regard to this, because I think it's very dangerous for the question that I had about who's affected what services and what was listed out pertaining to section heads, immigration, foreign detention center, tactical gears. The personnel is tremendous. I think it's very dangerous when we mess with our national security, and especially with cutting such an important aspect of our budget. So I just would like to know who actually was responsible for it, and just for me to ask exactly what was the thinking behind it as well. With regard to the earlier it was stated that one of the things that we are noticing is a rise in crime. My question earlier, in one of the previous meetings, was about the scanner for the containers. Answer given then was that a quotation was asked. I was looking through the budget to see if I saw a quotation or amount for it. I still haven't seen it. Maybe I overlooked it. So perhaps if you can indicate whether or not it's there, or is it something that will be placed in the 2025 budget? This is very important. As stated earlier, crime is on the rise. A lot of our children are finding themselves with weapons, with drugs that they're actually using and what's not. So for me, it's very important that this is added, whether it's in the 24 or the 2025 budget. So I just would like an update on that. And to end on a positive note, I have seen an increase of security with regard to, for example, VKS walking in the nights in town area. So I would like to compliment you, and also the men on the floor, in the districts, in the community, protecting us. I know they're doing the best that they can, and I appreciate it. On our behalf, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Brug. I now give the floor to MP York. MP York, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Once again, good afternoon to the Minister and his support staff. Minister, maybe I missed it, but I didn't fully hear, I didn't hear at all the answer to my question pertaining to the lab, the forensic lab. And in the event that it was missed or skipped, I'll state it again. What are the plans? What plans does the ministry have for the forensic lab of the police station? So when it comes, as it pertains to the lab itself and the instruments used and investments needed for that moving forward. Will that be taken up in this budget or in the 2025 budget or any budget? Thank you.
Thank you, MP York. MP Roseberg, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to clarify, I understand that the ministry is in need of funds and that police cars is one of the important subjects to tackle crime. But the reason why I'm asking and I'm so detailed and specific about the crime fund, because I would like to know when it's going to be used for rehabilitation and resocialization of repeat offenders are the ones that can finally find their way in society, because the crime fund was initiated to combat and prevent crimes for the community. So I'm just wondering when we as St. Martin can also have a few projects ongoing, like Curacao, for example, with their 18 projects. I'm wondering when we as St. Martin can have at least 1 or 2 or 3 projects going. So that's the reason why I'm so hard on the crime fund. That's all. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Roseberg. MP Otley, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good day to the Honorable Minister of Justice, his support staff, the viewing and listening public. Madam Chair, we hear a lot of congratulations for police presence and so forth, but that also comes with a cost. So I too would like to congratulate the Minister, and the reason I ask about your sentiments through you, Madam Chair, to the Honorable Minister, is because I noticed specific cuts, National Detective cuts, different area, National Detective cuts again, police cuts, immigration cuts. So everything within our protection was cut. And then again, as I caution every other minister who speaks of just 2 months, we are approaching Christmas time, where I know back in the day they used to even bring police from Curacao during Christmas time, because it has been customary to see a rise in crime. Because of course around this time everyone wants the nice things and wants to treat their family. So I say to be very cautious, not saying that I condone or promote this, but it is a customary thing. We notice that security needs to be beefed up during Christmas time, and to see these cuts is definitely the reason I asked. I would also like to know a specific question. It's burning. There was a young man extremely ill in the prison. I would like to know the status of that. It'd be remiss of me at this point. He's extremely ill. And I would like to definitely know the status of that. And it leads me to other things that, how do you go about the release of prisoners that are critical or terminally ill? Who is responsible? Is it you? Is it the prosecutor through you, Madam Chair? And I'll go deeper as to why I asked that later down, but definitely it's a question that I need to ask you.
Thank you, MP Otley. Minister, allow me, before I give you the opportunity to respond to the members of Parliament, allow me to add a few brief questions to those already posed. Can you, Minister, inform us of the state or status maybe of the government property in Coal Bay on the Orange Grove Road? What's the status there? Under your ministry, Minister, the so-called fuel gasoline excises are mentioned for the amount of over 11 million guilders. From the numbers in the budget, it is estimated that in 2022, just over 9 million guilders were collected. Can you, Minister, provide Parliament and the people of St. Martin a brief overview on this matter of the gasoline excises that fall under customs under your ministry? So give us one. I would like to know what was collected in 2023, as the budget only provides the actuals of 2022. And if you can just give us a brief overview of the excises on fuel, gasoline, if you wish, excises as they're called, accijnsen in Dutch. And then, Minister, for the especially the general public, of course, in the budget, we have several justice bodies that St. Martin contributes to based on kingdom laws. And I would like you to just give an overview of these, Minister, because they are not really specified in the budget. We see them mentioned, so judicial agencies and the amount that St. Martin is contributing. And I say this and briefly reflecting on the celebration of the anniversary of 10-10-10. And as you know, that was officially observed yesterday, Monday. And I just would like you in this context to stress that we have taken on also responsibilities to pay our part into some of these justice agencies, such as the Court of Justice, such as the Council for the Maintenance of Law, etc., etc. There's several of them in the budget under your ministry. And again, if you can just give an overview of those and the agreement based on which every year we have to contribute to these services as St. Martin, for the people to understand that our taxpayers' money also go into supporting these agencies, of which we're part, but we are responsible to pay our share. And I would like that to be highlighted as well. Minister, those, and then I know it also, or maybe primarily falls under the Minister of General Affairs, but I know that the Ministry of Justice also uses the services of the VKS. And if from your perspective, you can give us the status of that. I know they have presented several proposals to government, etc., etc. So if that too can be from your perspective, can be highlighted. And then lastly, in this context, Minister, the issue of vaping amongst our young people has been one of a concern for me, not only today, yesterday, but for several years as this phenomenon continues to grow on St. Martin. And for me, what is important is the fact that this is growing amongst our youth. So in questioning government over the years, one of the last things that I understood from your predecessor was that this matter is so multifaceted that an interministerial group was created to deal with the matter of vaping amongst our young people. And it was supposed to be, that answer came from the Minister of ECYS, by the way, under a different cap of yours as well, but it was supposed to be the Ministry of ECYS, Justice, and I believe TIAT. Minister, as far as you know, and from your purview, has such an interministerial group been established? Was the Ministry of Justice part of it? How was it established? Was it done by LB or MB? And if so, can this be shared? And that is with respect to the statement by the Minister of ECYS, the previous Minister of ECYS, that to address the issue of vaping, that an interministerial group would have been created to do so. That would have included justice. So, Minister, these are the few additional questions that I pose in addition to those asked by my colleagues. And Minister, I'll adjourn for 5 minutes so that we can talk about the continuation of your answers to Parliament. Meeting adjourned for 5 minutes. Members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome back after a brief adjournment to caucus with the Minister of Justice, Minister Lewis, on his return to answer the questions just posed by members of Parliament. This will be happening in approximately 1 hour. In the meantime, we continue with the other ministers, which, by the way, would be Minister Lewis as the minister acting for Education, Culture, Youth and Sport. So the Minister for Education, Culture, Youth and Sport is up next for answering questions of Parliament. And so I therefore would now again adjourn just to change around the staff of the ministries so that Minister Lewis can continue in his capacity as Minister of Education, Culture, Youth and Sports. So this meeting is adjourned now for 2 minutes. Members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This time, I again welcome Minister Lyndon Lewis in his capacity as Minister for ECYS. I also welcome the staff of ECYS supporting the Minister here this afternoon. So, Minister, welcome back, and you are here currently to respond to questions posed by members of Parliament that have been asked during the initial presentation on the amended budget 2024. So, Minister, I immediately invite you to take the floor on this topic regarding the Ministry of Education, Culture, Youth and Sports. Minister, you have the floor.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon to you again, Madam Chair, the honorable members of Parliament, and to who all are listening, viewing these proceedings. Good afternoon. As we continue to discuss and deliberate on the proposed budget amendment that impact the future of our nation, I would like to address you as Acting Minister of Education, Culture, Youth and Sport. Without further delay, I would like to get right into the answering of the questions posed by the honorable MPs, through you, Madam Chair, MP De Weaver, from 24 persons to 6 persons, the biggest effect, more so injustice, and the Ministry of Education, Culture, Youth and Sport. Through you, Madam Chair, I took note of the statement from the honorable MP and wish to elucidate on the personnel cuts of the Ministry of Education, Culture, Youth and Sport. The decrease in the budgeted vacancies was based on 2 areas where budget cuts could be implemented. Personnel cost, 2.1 million guilders, and goods and services, 1.3 million guilders. The Ministry of Education, Culture, Youth and Sport could not reduce the goods and services budget as much so. Most of the cuts came from the personnel budget. These cuts were not limited or eliminating full vacancies. They also included adjustments based on the number of months personnel were reflected in the budget. For example, this occurred when personnel transferred out of the ministry or retired during the year. The 6 remaining budgeted vacancies are in the Division of Public Education teaching staff. Through you, Madam Chair, the questions and answers to MP Otley. Decrease in 13.1 million in education. Can I receive an explanation on this? The decrease in the capital investment for the Ministry of ECYS consists of 12.1 million originally allocated for the construction of a high school in the 2024 budget. However, the dossier for the project lacked sufficient substantiation as it did not include concrete costs, estimates, or architectural plans for the high school, and no land had been secured for the construction. As a result, the investment could not be approved in its current state. Additionally, 200,000 guilders for computer hardware and telecom equipment was removed from the 2024 CAPEX budget due to priority changes in capital investments approved by the CFT. 500,000 guilders for the equipment and setup of SMVTS was also excluded from the 2024 CAPEX budget due to these changes. Lastly, 300,000 guilders for ICT hardware and software was deducted for the same reason. In total, the deductions from the 2024 CAPEX budget amount to 13.1 million. I would like the names of all consultants hired by each minister and would like to know the contractual pricing for each consultant hired by each minister. The Minister of ECYS has hired no consultants. And how many cabinet staff are in each cabinet? There are 6 cabinet staff members in the cabinet of ECYS. Through you, Madam Chair, questions posed by MP La Cruz. I did not see anything in the budget for Carnival. I have not seen that reflected anywhere in the budget. The Department of Culture utilizes the budget allocated under the caption Promoting Culture Nationally and Intangible Cultural Heritage for the Carnival-related programs. My colleague, Minister of TIAT, has also addressed this question as they budget funds for Carnival. Through you, Madam Chair, the questions posed by MP Bruch and answers thereto. Cut with reference to Ministry of Education, Breakfast on Wheels program for school children. Does the cut affect what is being made available for the breakfast programs? No cuts were made to the budget account 43421320, voting, which covers the feeding programs within the public schools. Cuts with reference to personnel and expertise, considering that there are so much technical assistance that are going to be needed for pending legislation, are these cuts limited to only 2024, and while they be resorted to 2025 to acquire expertise outside of government where needed? The budget cuts to the Department of Education include a reduction in the department's personnel budget for a senior policy officer who left the department in 2024. This is a critical vacancy, and this cut will adversely affect the department's ability to deliver on pending legislation and agreements made in the country packages in 2025. Different departments complain about the shortages of personnel. Are the cuts also when it comes to personnel as a result of the recent increase of the situation where a lot of civil servants are leaving the government apparatus to the private sector? Is that one of the reasons why you see a drop in certain areas within the budget? For the past 3 consecutive years, the ministry has, for various reasons, been unable to fully utilize its personnel budget. And the forecast indicates that the same will hold through 2024. For 2024. This trend appears to be consistent across the entire government, making it difficult to argue that a reduction in personnel costs is unrealistic or will hinder the achievement of goals, especially when we have been unable to fill all vacancies and fully utilize our personnel budget for the last 3 years. Notably, there are at least 2 individuals working in the ministry who are affecting the budget of other ministries. Additionally, at least 5 individuals are impacting the ministry's budget while working in other ministries or cabinets. The situation affects the department's or division's ability to achieve its goals, as there are fewer staff members present than those being paid from the budget. Clearly, the organization faces challenges in processing personnel matters promptly, which affects its ability to fill vacancies and fully utilizes its personnel budget. Departments and divisions have been advised to hire temporary employees through employment agencies for the remainder of 2024, particularly in the areas where there is an urgent need of manpower. Explain why exactly that the amount was required for the amount to be adjusted. The overall amount proposed cut was based on compliance with the requirements of CFT. So this was basically an instruction. Through you, Madam Chair, the questions posed by MP York. The Martin Luther King School, the tender for the tiles in the classrooms is now out. The roof for the classrooms have been handed over. The only thing to speak is paint, windows, and tiles. What is the timeline moving forward, and what do we plan to use the school for between now and next school year? The retiling of the Martin Luther King Jr. School is currently in progress, and it is estimated to be completed in 5 weeks. The repainting will also be undertaken simultaneously with an estimated completion time frame of 3 weeks. If all targets are met, the repairs at MLK School should be completed by the end of November 2024. Cut in school funds, 13.1 million. What are the plans to mitigate the loss of the school materials? The 13.1 million guilders decrease was for capital investment projects in the capital investment budget only and not for goods and services. The reduction for goods and services in the operational budget is equivalent to 1.4 million guilders. There will be a negative impact from the budget cuts, but this was unavoidable given to the changes in government priorities. 10. Drastic cuts in sports budget for local and regional tournaments. Are there any strategies to mitigate this to athletes, the attention they deserve, to give them the attention they deserve? The drastic cuts impact our ability as a ministry to support local and regional tournaments in the way we would like. And for this reason, we are encouraging the private sector to join us in supporting our efforts. As government, we emphasize public-private partnerships in every sense of the word. Through you, Madam Chair, the questions posed by MP Duran. Traffic. Is it possible to explore the option to have a school bus hub system by the Jose Lake Ballpark and the Raul Illich Ballpark be set up to prevent parents from going all the way into the traffic to the St. Peter's area? This could be either funded by government or from the parents themselves for 25 guilders a month. The Ministry of Education, Culture, Youth and Sport is in the process of fully implementing several initiatives to enhance the busing service, including plans to introduce a fleet management system in the coming months. We are certainly open to exploring a school bus hub system in collaboration with our colleagues from the ministries of TIAT and Justice once these initiatives have been implemented. Through you, Madam Chair, the questions posed by MP Brugge. For each ministry, what project or services would be affected by each of these cuts? Sport projects affected. Sport awareness campaign, specifically the yearly award ceremony, tournament participation, the national team, or organizational development. The vision for educational innovation. The activity budgets, particularly for innovative projects, were cut. This translates to challenges with posed activities such as collaborative projects with external stakeholders to raise awareness for reading among students, where the division could only contribute in kind rather than financially due to recent budget cuts. Critical staff for key positions have also been impacted. Student Support Services Division. The cuts affect the division's ability to replace staff who cannot be hired through an agency given the specialized nature of the work, and hire key personnel needed to support additional tasks assigned to the division. Consequently, the division can no longer execute programs funded by the trust fund. Additionally, some of the division's preventative programs had to be halted, so staff could focus on direct services for students. The cuts also impacted direct services to clients, students, and parents, as there are insufficient staff members available to meet demand. School safety was compromised as necessary. Training and handling fires in schools and related programs had to be halted. Division study financing. The cuts affected the following areas: the ability to hire staff for critical vacancies, implementation of new study financing legislation, which includes increases in study financing payments, the ability to generate revenue for government coffers through the preparation of documents to establish study depths, Division Public Education, capital investments. From the capital investment budget, 200,000 guilders designated for computer hardware and telecom equipment was cut, delaying the purchase of new hardware for public schools and the implementation of modern telecommunication system. 500,000 guilders for equipment at the SMVTS was cut from the budget, impacting the modernization of the curriculum and refitting the technical classrooms with new equipment, which is crucial for providing students with practical, hands-on experience using modern, up-to-date technology. 300,000 guilders cut from the ICT hardware and software budget will significantly impact public schools by limiting students' access to essential training or learning technology and hindering efforts to upgrade outdated equipment. School materials. The budget cuts for school materials resulted in a reduction of 184,000 guilders, 750. Such a reduction forces public schools to carefully manage their financial obligations. For example, do we reorder English language material costing 110,000 guilders, or delay the purchase of mathematics materials costing 126,000 guilders? Can we still proceed with the general school order, including copybooks, pens, pencils, etc., costing 90,000 guilders, or do we cancel the consumables for the handwriting methods, which would cost 40,000 guilders? These are some of the difficult choices public schools must grapple with. Department of Youth. The cuts affected the ability to hire the following positions: policy worker, financial officer, and administrative worker. The possibility of hiring temporary personnel to support the department. Department of Culture. The hiring of a policy worker and secretary. A reduction in the subsidization in organizations and the awarding of talent grants. The quality of events executed by the Department of Culture. Department of Education. The budget cuts include a reduction in the department's personnel budget for a senior policy officer who left the department in 2024. This is critical. This is a critical vacancy, and the cut would adversely affect the department's ability to deliver on pending legislation and agreements made with the country packages of 2025. Division Inspection. The cuts significantly affect the truancy unit, which consists of 4 FTEs, but currently has only 2 employees. For the same in 2025 if the budget mirrors that of 2024. We have now come to the end of the questions posed and answers provided for the Ministry of Education, Culture, Youth, and Sport. I appreciate the thoughtful inquiries and the engagement of all members present. As always, I remain open and available to provide any necessary clarifications or further details as we continue our important work together. Thank you for your time, attention, and commitment to the betterment of the education system, culture, youth, and sports sectors. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the honorable members of Parliament.
Thank you, Minister of ECYS, Minister Lewis, for your responses to questions posed by members of Parliament. And of course, now the floor will be given to members of Parliament, and I invite MP Doran to take the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to the Minister and his support staff for providing the answers thus far. I just wanted to expound a bit on my question for clarification purposes. In no way I want to hamper or get into the current school busing system that is taking place. I'm talking about stakeholder engagement, whether it be a meeting with private bus owners and parents, a public meeting, so to speak, whereas the option can be explored for parents that opt not to drive all the way into the cul-de-sac basin, but allow a sort of a system to take place at Jose Lake and Rowley Village. So not going into the school busing system. So I know that is very complicated and is very set up how it is, and they're looking for ways and means to improve that. But I'm talking about something totally separate, which can come as a sort of an initiative from government in collaboration with the ECYS and the Ministry of Justice. Is the ministry open to explore such an option? Thank you.
Thank you, MP Doran. Any other member of Parliament wishes to take the floor? That not being the case, we do have 1, 2. First, we have MP Brug.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon to the support staff of the minister. Once again, welcome, Mr. Lewis. Just some clarification, because just now you said that the cuts affect the truancy department, which actually has 4 FTEs, but currently only have 2 truancy employees, and this would remain so. My question pertains to that as well, and maybe it's also a suggestion. One of the ways, coming from the truancy, I know one of the tasks of a truancy officer is to tackle the issues of students being truant, dropping out, dropouts, being absent from school, and so on. And one of the responsibilities or so-called authorities that a truancy officer should have is the ability to give fine. Now, you answered my question when you wear the hat of the Justice Minister pertaining to the BOA. So that's one of the training that they're missing. That's why they cannot execute their task. But in the meantime, as the Minister of Education, Culture, Youth, and Sport, let me say the whole thing, my question to you is, I know they don't have the authority right now to write fines. So is it, and considering we're talking about cutting budget, this is a form of income. So is it the plan of you, or perhaps whoever to follow you, but you can't answer whoever to follow you, but is it your plan to perhaps do whatever has to be done with regard to giving those truancy officers the ability to write fines? Is that one of your plans for the rest of the year? And in addition to that, there's also a situation with them when it comes to, for example, people traveling with their students unlawfully. So is there an interministerial agreement between, for example, the Justice Ministry and Education, so that some form of, that when parents break the law, that some form of fine or sanction should be given to them? So that's my question. And pertaining to the, you stated also that it doesn't affect the breakfast program, so that's a good thing. My question is also, what happens to the rest? Because right now I understand that public school receive funding. Is it the intention, or is it possible that the other schools, subsidized schools, can also receive maybe similar programs? And I sent in something pertaining to that. If you can give me an update to the breakfast, not breakfast, but the meal program for those students when it comes to the LBHAM that I sent in. That's it for now, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, MP Brug. I now give the floor to MP York.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Once again, thank you. Good afternoon, Minister, and good afternoon to the support staff. In regards to the questions I already posed, there was one question that wasn't, I think, fully understood pertaining to the Martin Luther King School. My question was, well, thank you for the elucidation that it's expected to be finished in November, if I understood correctly. My question was more aimed towards what are the plans between November and the new school year for the school, or for the building. Moving on from there, in the budget, I have some additional questions. There 1 cent per liter provision. I see that it has been cut, like several other things, but as it pertains to the legislation for it, I know the legislation reached as far as the money being able to be allocated to the ministry, but if I understood correctly, the entity in which is allowed to use it was never really addressed. So what is the state of affairs with that? And contrary to most posts, the majority of them, if not all, the cuts are based on expenditures, whereas the 1 cent per liter is basically an income, but yet it was cut. So was it cut because it went to another post? What was it cut for? Next would be some additional questions pertaining to the VWO and the technical vocational education. What are the long-term visions of the Ministry of Education to ensure continued access to VWO and technical vocational education, considering the concerns from the school boards that the lump sum compensation system which is based on the number of students, insufficiently covers the cost of these special forms of education with extraordinary high cost. Furthermore, what was the lump sum compensation system evaluated by a consultant recently? If yes, what were the findings and the recommendations of the consultant? Were these recommendations implemented? If no, why not? If yes, please indicate how. There is an increase in the subsidy for subsidized school boards, whilst according to the data, there has been a decrease in the number of students in the primary and secondary schools since 2017. Can the minister provide the reasons for the increase and moreover the legal justification for the increase in the absence of an increase in the number of students based on the lump sum compensation system? One of the main complaints from the businesses is that the education system is not properly aligned with the labor market needs on St. Martin. What are the initiatives and educational innovations is the ministry pursuing to better resolve these issues? What are the plans seeing all the cuts in the budget for special needs or special education? I haven't seen much from that reflected in the budget. And in accordance with the legislation, the Minister of Education is required to present the State of Education report to Parliament. Can the Minister please provide an update on the State of Education report, and when will it be presented in Parliament? Those would be my additional questions. Thank you.
Thank you, MP York. I now see MP Brug requesting the floor. MP Brug.
Yes, thank you very much. I just would like to add some more as well. I was responsible for a project a couple of months ago. And one of that project was actually for the opening of school. I asked several of the schools to send in an essay asking why they should be the individual teachers to receive school supplies. And in these essays, it was very disturbing. It was very disturbing to me to realize what some of these teachers was actually asking for. They were asking for things such as toilet paper, such basic necessities. And that is disturbing. So for me, I'm not a proponent of cutting anything out of education. But I want to know, for example, what currently, because I haven't seen it in the budget, does the Ministry of Education have any outstanding when it comes to our vendors? How much these outstandings are? And is it the intention that we can also, when is the intention to start to pay these vendors so that the supplies can reach those that need them the most? That's our students. In addition to that, 1 second. Yes. In addition to that, a lot of our schools are facing, a lot of our schools, especially in the classrooms, are meeting challenges with regard to children with behavioral issues, with regard to children with even mental issues. I know in the past there was supposed to be an institution by the former Bell School, supposed to be organized. I understand that after the hurricane, that was destroyed. The plan is now currently at NRPB with regard to the rebuilding of that institution. But in the meantime, the situation is getting worse in the classrooms. My question to you, Minister, is what is being done in the meantime until that building is completed and that it can be occupied? What is being done in the meantime to help the teachers in the schools with regard to dealing with these children with behavioral issues and also the mental issues as well? That would be it for me, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, MP Brug. MP York, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I forgot one question. As it pertains to the state of affairs or the status of the insurance policies for the various school buildings, both subsidized and public schools. So what is the status of the insurance policies for the buildings? Thank you.
Thank you, MP York. Minister, I don't see any other MP with questions for you at this time, so allow me just to, again, briefly add some without repeating what my colleagues have already asked. The same question that I asked you, Minister, in your capacity as Minister of Justice regarding the vaping amongst the youth, I want to repeat it here as part of the Ministry of ECYS. It is that ministry that informed me in the past that a interministerial group of civil servants was to be put together, and that, so thereto I ask, was that done? Was it established? With which ministries and with what specific objectives? Minister, I don't expect you to have this answer at the tip of your fingers, but I think it would be important for us to get an overall picture of the counseling and crisis intervention initiatives in our educational system, especially but not solely our high schools, because according to me, it does not start at high school level, but I would like to know if you, from a general perspective, can get the state of that type of service, student service to our students. Again, counseling and intervention, crisis intervention. How much of it do we have? I know at different schools we have different support systems, but if we take it as St. Martin educational system, how do we fare in that respect? Minister, some time ago, before you took this particular office, we saw where the special ed policy, so special education policy, was finalized. As you know, Minister, special education too is one of the areas in education that need our attention. And thus my question is, with that policy in place, what steps have been taken or will be taken, and according to what timeline will these different steps be taken? Minister, the capital budget for education for 2024 has been reduced with approximately 12 million guilders. Is that reduction the project that was presented by the government at the time for the Charlotte Brookson Academy, is my question. And since that was taken out of the budget for 2024, and in the budget, it is anticipated in 2025, a capital project for a high school, is that the same thing? The amount in 2025 is less than 12 million, but is it the same thing, or is this high school projected in 2025 a public high school on St. Martin? And in that context, I want to refer to information that we received, answers that we received as Parliament from the question regarding what is taking place on the Ring Road. What are the plans from the government building right down to the traffic light, so to speak? What are government's plans? And where your ministry is concerned, I took note that the plans, because part of that property, the one across from the sport complex, is of the Chamber of Commerce. And I understood that their plans include a performing arts center. Now, here is where it touches your ministry. And I ask, are you aware of these plans, and what should I imagine when it is stated a performing arts center in the building to be constructed by the Chamber of Commerce on the Pondfield / the Ring Road? And again, I say this because the project that was presented in the 2024 budget for the Charlotte Brookson Academy was to include such a center. And my question at the time was, is this going to be for the general use, for the general population's use? So I am quite interested to know, one, if you know of these plans of the Chamber of Commerce, and what exactly am I to imagine when it is stated that they include a performing or a center for the performing arts. And then I think it was MP York who asked about the report on the state of education, and I support that question and look forward to the answer. Minister, again, I don't see any other MPs wishing to pose additional questions, so I will hereby adjourn this meeting for 5 minutes to discuss with the minister. Meeting adjourned for 5 minutes. Members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back as we continue with the Central Committee meeting of Parliament handling the draft budget amendment or the draft amended budget for 2024. We started out with the Minister of Finance, and questions were posed by members of Parliament, not only regarding the Ministry of Finance, but other ministries as well. And subsequently, ministers appeared to answer the questions regarding their respective portfolios. And we have had several ministers. The last minister up until this moment was the Minister of ECYS. Questions were posed to the minister after the answers were provided to the initial questions. And now we are going to continue with the Central Committee meeting. The Minister of ECYS will indicate in a little while when he will be able to respond to those questions just posed. And in the meantime, until we get that indication from the minister, we will continue with the next ministry. So I will again adjourn for 2 minutes, and we will change ministers and their support staff to continue with the Minister of Tourism, Economic Affairs, Transport, and Telecommunication. So the meeting is adjourned for 2 minutes. We'll get our change going, and we look forward to hearing from the Minister of ECYS when he can be back in Parliament to respond to the questions. So right now, we're going to adjourn for 2 minutes just to allow that change. Meeting adjourned. Members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. A brief adjournment to allow a change of ministers as we continue with the Central Committee meeting of Parliament handling the draft amended budget 2024. At this time, we continue with the ministers, and I therefore want to welcome Minister Grisha Heiliger Martin and her support staff. The minister, of course, is here to respond to questions asked about the Ministry of TIAT, the Ministry of TIAT, Economic Affairs, of course, Tourism, Economic Affairs, Transport and Telecommunication Ministry, and I therefore bid the minister welcome and her support staff once again and immediately ask her to take the floor responding to the questions posed by members of Parliament. Minister Heiliger, you have the floor.
A pleasant good afternoon, Madam Chair Lady, and to the Secretary and to the members of Parliament, those listening and viewing online. Good afternoon to one and all. Madam Chair Lady, I would like to go straight into the questions and answers posed by the Member of Parliament, and the first Member of Parliament is MP De Wever. MP De Wever asked why the budget shift of 185 to 183, but the cost of 1.7 million when we have a change of 2 personnel, make the link between the budgeted from 17 to 11. Not sure if, I hope I can answer the answer correctly because the question is a little unclear, so bear with me. So in the original budget of 2024, certain vacancies were planned for a full 12-month period. However, with the amended budget, we took a more realistic approach by adjusting the start dates for those roles. As a result, the months allocated for some positions were reduced to 4 or 5 months, depending on the circumstances. Additionally, we had a few cases, 3 in total, where civil servants left the organization either due to retirement, resignation, or a leave of absence. While the months allocated for these positions have been cut accordingly, they are still reflected in the budget as active workers. I go on to the questions posed by MP Omar Otley. MP Omar Otley stated, speaking of tourist tax, is the intention of the government to continue the process? And he stated that the tourist tax, they did a study in the office based on the Caribbean, $15 to $25 per person, and we would not be out of the region. We would not be out of the region in regards to competition. What is the view? What is my view on this? So this study was mentioned, will assuredly be reviewed, as it was not part of the transition document. While it is valuable to benchmark ourselves against the neighboring islands, we must consider the broader implications of implementing a significant tourism tax. Given our island's past neglect to tourism development, it is crucial to find a balance between investing in our product and imposing hefty financial burdens on visitors. While I do understand the need for a dire structural revenue for country St. Martin and agree with the Minister of Finance that we cannot continue to place a financial burden solely on the people of St. Martin, once we receive advice from the SED, together with the Minister of Finance, we will review and discuss the best way forward. MP Otley asked regarding the vending village. There is a reduction of 220 guilders, and that I mentioned that there was no increase or decrease, but the statement was withdrawn, yet the reduction is still there. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong through you, Madam Chair Lady, MP Otley might be confusing the vending village and the marketplace. So during the 2024 budget debate, the previous minister decided to prioritize the marketplace project over the vending village. As a result, funds initially allocated to the vending village were redirected to the marketplace. By making this adjustment, the government's contribution to the marketplace ended up being less than what was originally budgeted for the vending village, so leading to the budget reduction for the vending village. Then MP Otley stated reduction on online marketing agencies and product development beautification elements. We have FCCA coming in a couple of weeks, and we speak of product development. It was one of the main points brought forward when the survey asked their Number 1 point was traffic, then number 2 was attractions, and then number 3 was cleanliness of the island. I hear the Minister of MP stated that he hears that the Minister of Finance speaks of revenue generation, but the budget does not reflect such. TIAT is responsible for such, and taxes seems to be the only resort. Regarding the online travel agency, the OTA strategy, it is included the capital expenditure CapEx in the capital expenditure CapEx budget, specifically through the post-1109 intellectual property IP initiatives. The initiative is designed to build brand equity by developing various digital and online marketing campaigns. Further, one of the most successful campaigns to date has been with Expedia, which has significantly increased the visibility of our destination. This partnership has proven highly effective in driving visitors' interest and bookings. The final stages of this campaign are on track to be completed in Q4 of this year, ensuring that the destination maintains strong momentum in attracting visitors through strategic and target online marketing efforts. Despite the reduction in the numbers of marketing agencies, the focus on the quality of tourism destination and marketing effectiveness remains our priority, and we continue to optimize our resources to ensure maximum impact for the tourism sector. What are the beautification products for product development? To enhance the visitor experience and drive economic growth, we are developing a master plan for the economic and aesthetic enhancement of Philipsburg. This plan includes initiatives to beautify the area, improve visitors' experience, and promote local businesses. Additionally, we introduced the Swaliga Routes initiative, aimed to identifying key locations along popular tourist routes, where local art can be displayed. Furthermore, we plan to clean and restore national monuments in a phased approach, preserving our historic heritage. What is the cost of the Causeway loan, and what is the balance of this loan and the remaining time of this loan? As of June 30th, 2024, the outstanding bond stands at $142 million. Of this, 34%, which is approximately $48.2 million, is directly attributed to the construction of the causeway, a vital infrastructure project that significantly enhances access to the port and surrounding areas. The bond loan also includes the refinancing of the port's existing loans, consolidating them to a more favorable interest rate. This allowed the port to better manage its debt obligations while continuing to invest in strategic projects essential to the growth of both cruise and cargo sectors. The loan is scheduled for repayment through 2035, providing a long-term, stable financial outlook. However, in the coming years, the port will see an acceleration of principal payments, which will contribute to the gradual reduction of the overall debt burden and further strengthen the port's financial position. The amount of the registered sole proprietorship, it was asked to Minister of Finance, but it is related to TIAT. The business issues to the sole proprietorship up to December 2023 is a total of 1,294. I do not currently have the numbers for 2024 as of yet. For each ministry, a name of all the consultants hired by the ministers along with a contractual amount and how many cabinet staff they have. In response to the query regarding the cabinet TIAT, I can confirm that TIAT cabinet currently consists of 7 members. Additionally, there are 3 consultants hired by the government for the ministry's cabinet, with a combined total allocation of 205,000 guilders from the period commencing in May and ending in 2024. These consultants are engaged based on specific needs aligned with the ministry's goals and are in accordance with the government's policies for consultancy engagement. The Ministry of TIAT said that there was an increase in the throughput fee due to the building of the bridge. The Prime Minister stated last Wednesday that throughput fee was established to build the bridge. Please provide clarity as to what it really is. The throughput fee was established as a revenue post to facilitate the contribution of the operating costs of the port and was established unanimously by the Island Council in 2007. The ED card system by Mintiat to start within the high season to be, okay, I think he's warning MP Otley is warning to be very careful and refer to the legislation of the ED card. And there you can find the ED card before and upon arrival. He stated that he's cautioning the minister until the legislation is changed, make sure it's mentioned that it can be done upon arrival or before to ensure people don't cancel their flights or missed. So an updated news release was shared and in a way to move towards improving efficiency and the process in transitioning online, where all necessary information will be filled digitally. While residents are not obligated to complete this form, it is strongly recommended as doing so can significantly expedite your entry and departure process. Currently, the system is in a testing phase and allowing for evaluation. Evaluation and adjustments before it becomes mandatory for all visitors and transit passengers traveling to or through St. Martin. No official date has been set for when this requirement will be enforced. Last question by MP Otley, hotel room tax. We are said to have a very low rate in that region. What is the minister's view? Our island's tourism product has undeniably fallen behind in recent years. While low rates are a competitive advantage, we must address the broader issues hindering our appeal. A balance must be considered between generating revenues and providing a quality visitor experience. Next question from MP Duran. Back in the day, it was said that they would pay Union Road and then it would be Point Blanche, but nothing is happening. I'm assuming this is between the port and the Ministry of Tiat, and are they assisting and how will they contribute to the infrastructure? Any updates on that between the port and Ministry of Tiat? Thank you, MP Duran, for that question regarding the port's role and contribution to the infrastructure updates, specifically in Point Blanche area and related to the cruise and cargo sectors. It is important to note that the Port of St. Martin, as a key strategic asset, has continuously invested in infrastructure developments that support both the tourism, cruise, and logistics cargo sector, while vital to the country's economy. The port's strategic plan recognizes the need to enhance St. Martin's appeal as both a tourism destination and a logistic hub, all while ensuring that growth remains sustainable and within the carrying capacity of the island. These goals are aligned with the national vision for balanced and environmentally conscious development. Key points on beautifications and infrastructure efforts, such as the ongoing beautification and infrastructure product, the beautification efforts at Battery Point, along with the Point Blanche roads, are part of the broader initiative to enhance the visitor experience. These efforts contribute to the area's aesthetic appeal as it serves as a gateway for cruise passengers, significantly improving the first impression visitors have for St. Martin. Point Blanche Road is also critical for cargo operations, and as such, the port continues to partner with relevant stakeholders, including government agencies, to address infrastructure needs in this area. The port has been actively investing in infrastructure projects such as the Cruise Pier South and ongoing cargo repairs, which are set to continue for the remainder of 2024. These repairs necessary to maintain the port's operational efficiency, especially in light of the growing demand for both cargo and cruise services. The port's strategic investment include plans to address long-term infrastructure upgrades, ensuring that St. Martin remains competitive in the region, and these include assessing and improving pier capacity, terminal facilities, and supporting road networks. The port's strategy aligns with the need to manage St. Martin's growth in a sustainable manner. This means taking into consideration the carrying capacity of their infrastructure, roads, roads, utilities, and environmental resources to ensure that our cruise and cargo section can grow without negatively impacting the island's residents and natural environment. The discussion on comprehensive infrastructure improvements are ongoing and are being done in partnership with the Ministry of TIAT, other government bodies, and private stakeholders. The goal is to balance growth while maintaining quality of life for the residents and preserving the island's natural beauty. Coordination with government. While in the past, the partnership has been different, the port's current role focuses on partnering with governments for a wider infrastructure initiative. This includes contributing to the overall development through joint projects and public-private partnership. TIAT continues to coordinate efforts with the port and other stakeholders to ensure that necessary infrastructure updates, such as road improvement in key areas like Union Road and Point Blanche, are addressed within the country's broader development framework. In a nutshell, the port remains committed to supporting St. Martin's infrastructure growth, with specific focus on projects that directly enhances the cruise and cargo sector. These initiatives are part of a long-term strategy to improve the island's appeal and functionality, ensuring that infrastructure development keeps pace with economic growth while safeguarding environment and local communities. I move on to questions posed by MP La Cruz. The Tourism Marketing Initiative, 2.5 million guilders to 2.4 million. So what activities were or will be taken away from this reduction? Not seeing it in the budget. For instance, they had plans to do marketing in the Caribbean and Guyana, and now they decided that the company doing marketing in the Caribbean to do marketing in Guyana. Through you, Madam Chair, Lady, this question for me is not clear. If maybe in the clarification round, MP La Cruz could maybe specify that 100,000 guilders cut, exactly what he means by that question. I'm not sure how to answer it. Where are the funds of Carnival and the payment, and where is it reflected? SCDF did not submit a subsidy request for 2024, but as many of you know, the Carnival Foundation faced unforeseen circumstances this year that led to organizers pulling out unexpectedly. However, to ensure that Carnival can still go on and continue to be a central part of our cultural heritage, the foundation reached out to the government through a calm decision, and then through a calm decision decided to support them with 200,000 guilders through the budget post 80040 festivals. It was taken from there today, this year. Then I move over to questions by MP Arian. Has Minister of Finance had any discussion with Minister of TIAT, Mr. Medium and Mr. Blackman regarding the idea and concept with the refinancing of the COVID-19 loans? No, we have not. Nowhere in the budget do we see transaction tax taking up the Hail Mary of ideas. Where is it reflected and will it be taken up? While I remain supportive of the transitioning to transaction tax, it is important to acknowledge that given the challenges we face this year, including the inadequacies of the 2024 budget, forcing major cuts, as well as the disruption caused by the fall of government, its introduction was not feasible. As we continue to strengthen our economy and modernize our tax system, we will explore the potential benefits and drawbacks of the transaction tax to determine if it aligns with our long-term goals. MP Arian stated that the acting Minister of TIAT issued a issue of lottery booths and the regulation of lottery booths policies and legislations to pay their fair share. Where is that now? And I don't see it in the budget, and I'm not seeing it in the toelichting, the explanatory notes, and it's not budgeted. So the national decree containing general measures is currently at the governor for his approval. Are all the lottery booths legal, and how many legally established lottery booths do we have? The ministry, as previously stated, prepared draft legislation to establish a regulated process for lottery permit holders to establish lottery booths. The last lottery booth count was approximately 102, and this was in August of 2023. What is the forecasted income that will be generated? Given the approximate amount of lottery booths as mentioned above, we are estimated about 22,000 per month or $264,000 annually. Regarding the fees for the inspection of small animals, I'm hoping that this is the question that were brought forward. Given that the legislation is outdated, where is the legislation currently? So with respect to the charging of fees for the movement of small animals to and through St. Martin, the ministry has finalized its study on the potential revenue-generating opportunity. This information has been placed on a list of priorities for legislation changes for 2025. MP Roseberg had no questions. We move now over to questions by MP Myers. What incentives are offered to investors, local or foreign? Is there a package that the government offers? The Ministry of TIAD in December of 2022 has published its investment and diversification strategy, the policy document. Said document refers to the need to provide incentives for investors, both foreign and local, that will have an impactful return on investment. We will continue on an interministerial level to develop such and will surely present and publish once completed. This policy I can share with the MP should the MP wish to have a copy of it. I see a nod through you, Madam Chair Lady. Then I move over to questions. I think MP Kotai had questions about beachside, but I think it was more related to Vrami. And then I move now over to a question posed by MP Brug. And he had a general question, to each ministry, what projects or services will be affected by the cuts? So the cuts on the TIAT, we can start on the staff bureau, external personnel, training and courses. Under the Department of Economic Affairs, Traffic and Telecommunications, we have books and subscription, oil gram price report, the projects and activities, diversification study, national economic development plan, and public transportation assessment. Then under the MET department, meteorology department, external personnel, various specific goods, contributions and membership. Under the licenses department, we also have external personnel. Under statistics department, general statistical research, specific statistical research. Under civil aviation and maritime, we have training and courses. We have external personnel, an air, sea, and transport lawyer. Then under the tourist bureau, we have product development, online travel agent, and internal personnel, marketing staff, active personnel, which was cut to 0 months, and market research. Then on the semi-project NGO organization, Tourism Bureau subsidy, Heineken Regatta, and sports tourism. Then I have my move over to questions by MP York. I think MP York gave an idea to give operational license to the locations and not solely to, I think MP York suggested to give operational license to locations and not solely operational business, the solely operator business. So while we understand the idea suggested by MP, legally all businesses are not required to have operational license, and the law does not support that. I don't know if that's clear. If anything, through you, Madam Chair Lady, you could maybe ask more questions to that. Then I move over to the last MP, which is MP Westcott Williams. Lottery booths, an ordinance containing general measurements was established by government, and one was established for lottery permit booths and branches. However, the general decree, the LBHAM, the implementation of such was left for the government, been left for them to be done. When is the national decree going into effect? The national decree in question is currently at the governor, and at this point, we cannot say when it will go into effect. Next question posed by MP Westcott Williams. The vendors allowing MSMEs to exist and to be done in a nice and organized manner. What is the status of Chamber of Commerce plans and how is it being coordinated? The Chamber of Commerce is still in the planning phase in regard to this development, and they intend to continue moving steadfast to ensure completion. An agreement already exists with current vendors. There in regard to the use of the property. The Ministry of TIAD continues to work alongside the Ministry of RAMI to address aesthetic and spatial development to ensure there is a uniformity and standards to further enhance our product on the island. Has the government taken a good look at the population census and actions needed to be taken due to the results of the census? If so, what actions will need to be taken? That's the final question. The results of the population census was presented to the community. A few of the ministries, and along with the previous Council of Ministers by the Ministry of Stats and Stats Department. The major findings were that there is an aging of the population, which we know will have some impacts on the healthcare system. And to this end, the importance of obtaining a general health insurance system is critical. There is some other various key results which will be taken up into priorities of such a relatively low level of education of the population, such as that, and also low birth rates. These matters will be looked into by the organization and discussed with various ministries to ascertain specific synchronization of policies, priorities, and/or projects. One of the challenges that the Department of Statistics faced was personnel, that the project leader of the population census is no longer with the ministry, and the previous department head is presently Minister Viasa. The department is currently in the process of recruiting another senior researcher so that they can continue the project to ensure that government take the critical policy matters into account. This also applies for stakeholders that may equally need this information for sound decision-making on their part. Madam Chair Lady, I now end the questions and answers, and I await any further questions and clarifications. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Heiliger, for those answers to members of Parliament. I see that already a member has indicated his desire to speak, so I give the floor to MP La Cruz. MP La Cruz, you have the floor.
A blessed afternoon. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady, Acting Griffier, the Minister and her support staff, my fellow colleagues, Member of Parliament, those watching and listening on all social media. Madam Chair Lady, through you, the question that I asked the Minister was to give me an explanation of what she thinks the cost cuts, what difficulties it brought to the ministry itself. So, for example, we have a cut in marketing and promotion. Which market did we cut, and what effect that will have on our product or bringing tourists to the island. So that was more the question also when it comes to sports tourism, that it was reduced by 45,000, for example. The Heineken Regatta reduced by 190,000. So what effects this had or this will have on the ministry itself. And it was straight across the board with all the cuts that were made, because I also wanted to know if this was a choice of the minister or this was actually finance that made these cuts and told the minister, hey, this is where we're cutting. I do understand the child allowance and the salaries. That's basically on the amount of people that were hired, and there's not enough time to hire those. But for example, staff bureau courses and training reduced by 50,000. These are questions that I keep asking. Why? Because if you want to get more income, but you're cutting, then I want to understand where we're cutting and how we're going to make more money if we're still cutting these important parts of the budget. I hope it is clear. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, MP La Cruz. I don't see any. Yes, I see a finger. I mean, looking for the button, and that is MP Irian. MP Irian, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening. Good evening to my fellow colleagues. Good evening to the Minister and her support staff. Minister, based on this budget and the allocation of the funds for GB in the budget, I'd like to know what the rental loss norm would be, because that's your ministry calculates that for the country, for the collective sector. So including that in the budget, what would the rental loss norm be for the collective sector? I forgot the English word, sorry. But I'm pretty sure she knows what I'm talking about. And when last was that calculated, and has that been updated? Because I know CFT asks for it every year, I believe, but every 2 or 3 years. Has that been updated to include the current loan from, we have in the budget now. Minister, thank you. You mentioned that you are working on the policy regarding the lottery booths. I look forward to that, but you didn't answer the question regarding the current state of the lottery booths. So the ones that we have now, what is the legal basis for it? Are they legal? What is every booth that we see on the island? What is the legal status? For example, if I have a Burger King license and I establish a second Burger King, I need a branch license. So every lottery booth, what license do they have to operate? So the person that's in the booth, do they pay as a V? Do they pay taxes? Do they have an AMANZAC, a BV, an NV? Because they collect money, right, and distribute money. So what gives them the legal right to execute this task? In addition to that, I believe you mentioned there are 106 booths. And what I would like to know is how many sale points do they have? So a grocery store, a gas station, how many sale points do they have regarding being able to sell these items? And again, what basis are they allowed to execute this? So if the others don't have a license and there's one main branch, are they allowed to, is anyone allowed to sell lottery booths, lottery tickets or numbers? And yeah, I think that's all for now. Thank you.
Thank you. MP Iran, you had something to add? MP Iran, you go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question regarding the inspection. So I know the last Minister of TIAT was working on revenue generating schemes, and the dated inspection policy was one of them. We didn't get an answer on that. Is that a plan to continue with your government in terms of the inspection department for vehicles? And yes, for vehicles. And because that answer was not given. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Iran. MP York, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon once again to the Minister and her support staff. Minister, I asked a series of lottery booth-related questions to the Finance Minister, and she was very adamant that basically she didn't want to touch that, and you had to answer those questions. So I guess I'll just pose them to you now. As it relates to the question, the answer to the question you gave a while ago, it was more from the vein of piggybacking off of what MP Iran was just explaining. Basically now, if I'm a lottery booth license holder and I have 10 booths, and the person to my right, for example, would have 100 booths, theoretically we're paying the same amount in taxes, right? And my question was more, as it relates to revenue generating ideas, the suggestion of, hey, what is the status or what are the plans when it comes to legislation to tackle that, in the sense of the more lottery booths, more branches you have, the more taxes you pay, the more revenues are generated for government. That was more of what I meant, more branch licenses and not necessarily operation licenses. Maybe I used the wrong term then. So to clear that up, because that also has to do with, again, the difference in lottery booths versus ticket vendors in the various stores and gas stations as such. Next question I had was pertaining to online gambling. Major pet peeve nowadays is basically are all the regulations at the bank. So basically, if you want to open up a bank account, or you even want to submit more than $3,000 or $2,000, you're being asked all these questions, and that has a lot to do with the banking regulations from the FIU, seeing that St. Martin is on the gray list. And one of the major reasons for that is for the lack of legislation that falls under the online gambling sector. So my question would be, what are the plans when it comes to legislation of that category? As well as it pertains to the airport, did the airport commence the repayment of the loan granted by government in 2018 and 2019 as yet? If not, why not? And if yes, can you please indicate, can the minister indicate how much has been recouped to date? And my final question would be more related to the true port fees, because there was a elaborate explanation in Parliament a couple of weeks back as it pertains to the explanation of the fuel clause. And one of the things, one of the boosdoeners, as they would say in Dutch, of the fuel clause is the true port fee. To my knowledge, that has never really been explained. Basically, what does the cost comprised of? What is it comprised of? How is that calculated? The fees that goes to the government from the cost, what is the percentage? What percentage? So basically, what is the pie chart of the true port fees? What percentage goes to government? What percentage goes to any other entity? And who are these entities as it pertains to the true port fee? And those would be my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, MP York. MP Irian, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the question regarding the rental last norm just now was basically the interest expense of the collective sector. So I said it in Dutch, but on the interest expense of the collective sector. And the collective sector threshold cannot exceed a certain limit. So first of all, I would like to know what our limit is, and by us taking on this loan, would it then exceed this limit?
That's it, MP Irian. Then I continue with MP Doran.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Thank you to the Minister for the answers provided thus far. I would like to just go back on one of the points that was brought forward. I don't believe that the Minister answered the question completely, so I'll just add some content to it. With respect to the causeway, in the permit agreement to build the causeway, there was a clause in there that the port would contribute to the repairs of the entire Union Road. That was never done. About 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, we repaired Union Road. When I say we, I'm talking about the government repaired Union Road with government funds. And then a discussion started for the port to repair Juancho Gileskin Boulevard, which they're busy with now, which is the road leading to the port. My question is, are these funds coming from the port through you, Madam Chair, or are these funds coming from government coffers, may it be CapEx or the regular road repair project? So I hope that clears up the question. The next question I have, Madam Chair, through you, is that I heard a number being mentioned in terms of what is still owed with respect to the causeway loan that the port is paying. I would like to know how much has the causeway cost the people of St. Martin, because say once the port took it out, it is a government-owned company, so the people are paying for it from 2014 to now, and how much is exactly owed. I heard a lot of figures being thrown around, and I didn't really get a clear answer, so I would like to make that question very clear, because by extension, the throughput fees, the container fees, the cost of living, and every other fee has increased since then. So leave that out. I would just like to know how much has the causeway cost the people of St. Martin from 2014 to 2024. I know that the port was busy exploring different means to try to sell it because, of course, it wasn't serving its purpose in terms of revenue generating that the idea, the initial plan was. So I'd just like some clarity on that before I move on into the next questions. Thank you for the opportunity, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, MP Doran. MP York, you have a follow-up or another question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. There was one question that I forgot to pose. Prior to a couple months ago, there was a I don't know, I don't want to call it a campaign promise, but for the lack of a better term, a campaign promise made by the Minister of TIAT and the Minister of ECIS as it pertains to the cooling system / airco for the Lebby Scott Sports Auditorium. So I would like to know what the status on that promise is and bringing that to fruition, because as you know, there's a lot of activities being done right now at the LB Scott Sports Auditorium, and it's very hot. So that promise will come true it will be very advantageous for those who attend these events. Thank you.
Thank you, MP York. MP Otley, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good day to the Honorable Minister of TIAT, the support staff, and those who may just be tuning in. Through you, Madam Chair, Honorable Minister of TIAT, the last time we were here, I made mention of certain answers received, and I could see when those wasn't yours or you wasn't comfortable, and maybe to the fact that, again, you were not here. I realized one of your answers didn't sit right with me at all, through you, Madam Chair, which was the health levy. And you, through you again, Madam Chair, listed the negative impacts and then at the end said, we'll see what the SER said. Kind of contradictory, same government and even the same party. The Minister of Finance has stated she's definitely on board and has actually listed this health levy as one of the revenue generating factors for this government. Through you, Madam Chair, I'd like to say to the Minister of TIAT, sometimes we get answers from our support staff, and when their vision doesn't align, they try to create a negative impression. The study which I spoke about was transferred. It's in the entire legislation that is now at the SED, and it was actually said that we can go up to $35. And what we were opting to do was go to 15. Everywhere around us, we are seeing these taxes, these levies being implemented, and I think that it definitely can help. And during this budget debate, I'm hearing CFT. Well, since CFT, they actually had liked the structure that was presented at the time when I was there. I would urge you to look into it and really, even if you have to suit it through you, Madam Chair, to fit your vision and the vision of the government now, just bring it. It is needed. The country needs it. And I'm pretty sure as Minister of Tourism, when I sat there as well, everything you hear was Aruba, 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 Aruba. And now we look, Aruba instituted it. And I think Aruba is actually $20. So we were still vying to be less than Aruba. So please, sometimes when we get the answers, I commended you when you wasn't here on your ability to push forward and get things done. Let's be sure. There are different means and ways. There's the health levy, of course. There's the hotel tax, which we spoke about, which at the time when we did have conversation with the hoteliers, they in turn did not mind an increase in the hotel tax rate. That's another option. And something which I knew when I was also in TIAT, the $1 safety fee, where I sent a letter to the airport via the COM stating that payment would have to start. Please let me know if it did start and is allocated in the budget. I see someone told me yes, but you can clarify. A couple of questions pertaining to the Causeway Bridge. Well, one of my colleagues asked, how much is the exact amount does the harbor pay towards the Causeway Bridge? How much does NVGEBE pay towards the throughput fee? Does any other company contribute to the payment of the Causeway Bridge? How much debt does the harbor presently have? What is owed for? How much does it pay towards loans in its entirety? And how much is the monthly burn rate? What is the annual maintenance cost of the Causeway Bridge? Who maintains the Causeway Bridge currently? What outstanding CapEx projects are still pending for TIAT, but particularly the harbor? Considering the FCCA and its members are leaning towards LNG, what is the harbor's position on being able to offer energy-related services to cruise industry? Now, this can not only save GEBE, but generate a revenue for us. I saw the Honorable Minister of Tayat in an article, but unfortunately, the company was moving towards what it was, Guadeloupe or whatever, because they're offering these services. So I do think it's time that we get on board and not be the last in an ever-changing world. Will a transfer of assets and debt from the harbor to the government help the port in any sort? Given the recent economic conditions, has there been any reevaluation on the port's capacity to manage financial risks, such as those posed by a natural disaster or pandemic? I ask this question, Madam Chair, through you, because in my capacity of Minister of VSI and discussions with CPS, it was stated that in the preparedness plan, we can estimate every 10 years a pandemic will be here. Every 10 years. It is in trajectory. Right now, we're 5 years off, 2019, so it's always good with preparedness, because if we look at the customary, about every 10 years, we are faced with some new pandemic. Also, is it still the interest of the port or part of the port, St. Martin, to sell or enter discussions with Global Port? Is that still an interest, still a topic, still a discussion? The vending village, through you, Madam Chair. I need clarification then. What is the vending village? Where is it at this moment? And where is it intended to be moved? That will be all the questions that I have at this moment, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Otley. MP Myers, you have the floor.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Madam Chair, to my colleagues here in Parliament, to the Honorable Minister of TIAT, radio listeners, those of you listening by social media, good afternoon. One of the questions that I asked Honorable Minister, I wanted to know the departure tax of all of the airports in the region. St. Martin, of course, we know, Aruba, Antigua, Anguilla, St. Kitts and Curacao. I don't think you answered that one. In the meantime, I've received the strategic plan, so thank you to the Honorable Chair of Parliament. She forwarded that to me, so thank you. I will review it. I always thought it was important to have a strategy, and not only a strategy, but to put things, an investment package, whereas when you go to these trade shows, when you trying to solicit persons to come and invest in your economy, that you have something that is concrete that you can offer. Whereas it does not come across in Parliament that when the persons on the executive branch do give some kind of incentive to investors, that is something nefarious. And it reminds me of the whole casino licensing thing back in the day. The government commissioned then it was Coopers and Lebrun then, to do a study on the casino industry, and subsequently one of the proposals that they came up with that any hotel that has 200 or more hotel rooms comes in automatic anmerking for a casino license. So that's not a discussion on the floor of Parliament anymore, because it's put in a package that when you're going to invest, this is what you get. And I think the same should be done for local investors, where local investors, to a certain parameter, be given a tax holiday as well. And I think that will put a balance between what a foreign investor invests and a local investor, but it also makes the local man, the proverbial small man, feels like government is doing something on their behalf. I asked the Minister of Romy a question last week, and I think it's important to ask you as Minister of Economic Affairs, through you, Madam Chair, is what is the economic impact that the power outages of GB had on our country, because the same small businesses and the same local businesses that we talk about was gravely affected by these constant power outages. And one of the things I hear budgets are projected, and one of the questions that I ask, it's a projection, and in particular, we heard a lot of that during the conversation regarding ENIA. All of the proposals are a projection. The question that I have to ask, is the budget a projection, yes or no? Is it a projection? Because one of the questions I also asked, how many cuts were there in the budget that was approved in March? In which the Minister of Finance came back and said there were no cuts. So which led me to believe that it was a projection and the budget fell short of its expectation, hence cuts now. I just wanted to get a feel for it so I could understand and help the people to understand, because when we are in these public debates and we're having these meetings, sometimes we as members of parliament, and I'm guilty as charged as well sometimes, we give the impression that the coffers are full and they're just, the funds are already there. So for the taking, a budget is a projection as to the income that you think you are going to receive based on the income that you received last year, based on your income generating areas that you received in previous years. So I just wanted to make that clear. I don't have any other questions for you, Madam. Through you, Madam Chair, to the Minister. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Myers. MP Kotai, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also, like MP Myers, would like to echo a sentiment that I mentioned when the Minister of Romy was here. How are we prioritizing the beautification of Philipsburg? And another thought that came to my head, I just remembered to ask about the EDC. If I'm not mistaken, through you, Madam Chair, there was a director. What was accomplished during his tenure, and what is the financial status of the EDC? And that would be it for me, Madam Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, MP Kotai. MP York, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Piggybacking off what my colleague MP Myers said a while ago, brought me to the following. A couple of years ago, about a decade ago and a couple of years ago, there were various studies done by VSA, the Ministry of VSA, on the state of affairs of gambling addiction on the island. And it was made clear numerous times that St. Martin suffers from a gambling addiction problem. Given, for example, the example used a while ago by the good MP of hotels that automatically has 200 or more rooms, automatically falls in the category of being allowed to have a casino license. What are the ministers, the honorable ministers' sentiments on that law? Because basically, as co-legislators, we are here to either make, amend, or repeal laws. And if there are undeniable evidence that St. Martin suffers from a gambling addiction, and we have more of these entities being built by the year, what are the ministers' sentiments moving forward as it pertains to the law that stands as entities of 200 or more rooms automatically apply or falls under the category of being able to have a casino license? Thank you.
Thank you, MP York. MP Otley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I'd just like to revert back to the same thing on my colleague, MP Myers, where he spoke of the projections and telling the public exactly what a budget is. And this refers back to my point exactly why I am very critical of the big change in having GEBE just placed into the 75.6 million just placed, and whereby other projects that are for government to carry out to be moved to 2025, Madam Chair, because it's a wish list, like I keep saying. So while we have an approved CapEx, which we didn't have for many, many years, we finally have an approved CapEx now. So it's very important on how we carry out projects throughout. Another thing, Madam Chair, that is very important to note is the reason that you may hear a lot of my questions pertaining to the causeway. For those who may not be aware, when the Minister of TEAT was here, we kind of created a link based on the answers. Well, I created a link based on the answers that this causeway bridge was built, which many of us use. However, throughput fee, according to the Prime Minister, was instated so that we can pay the loans for such. Then in such, with this throughput fee, came increase in fuel clause. Sol has to pay to throughput fee. I want to know what GB has to pay. Cost of living, products and goods, groceries, grocery stores. All of these are linked because while we speak of yes, we do have a national energy crisis. We do have a crisis of people not being able to pay their bills, not being able to afford their bills. We are receiving petitions here in Parliament pertaining to the fuel clause. And all of these, most of the scenario where you see it's linked. So I wanted to clarify to the members, the public of St. Martin, why maybe the interest in causeway, because we need to find something that will benefit the people and help with the cost of living. That is exactly what we are trying to develop when I ask about the question specifically to the causeway. Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Otley. MP Myers, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, there was two questions that I asked and I didn't get an answer from, so I don't know if the Minister of Finance will answer the question. One was there was a loan some years ago that was approved by the banks to the tune of $90 million for GB, and it was not drawn down on. I don't know if you know the answer for that. I did not receive that answer to that question. And then secondly, I believe, when was the last time, can you give me, over the last 4 years, what GB paid in concession fees to government, and including the year, I believe it was 2017 or 2018, the amount that was taken out of GB to balance the budget of government. Can you give me that exact amount? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Myers. MP Irian, you have the floor.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. Also, the MP Myers mentioned something about budget and projections, and I actually want to follow up on that. The budget projections were cut, so cost wasn't cut, but the projections were cut because of revenue generation. So there were items that say like veneer, there was items like the tax levy, I believe the 1 cent per liter wasn't there, the inspection, like I mentioned, among other items. So yes, obviously if you have these revenue generation and the current government removes them, my question would be, what revenue generation items since May were presented by this government for the budget amendment? For example, we had the 1 cent per liter. That was a direct way of generating revenue, but it was removed. That went to sports. So I don't see why, for example, an item like that would be removed when it's an easy way to generate funds, especially for tourism. The only thing that had to be done was to have an entity attached to it. That was the final part. The legislation, I believe, was actually drafted by the Ministry of TEAT, and they worked along the Ministry of Education. So again, yes, I agree. If the cuts will come if the government removes any sort of revenue generation, that's logic. But what was it replaced with is more important. And it will also mean that if all these items are removed in 2024, the Minister of Finance mentioned that for the budget 2024 and 2025, no policy changes are coming. That would mean that the current government, is not planning to make any policies regarding revenue generation, which is very rare to me. So I'd like some clarity on that. Is the Ministry of TIAT not working on any policies regarding revenue generation? And none of those policies are reflected in the budget 2024, and the Minister of Finance also mentioned that none will be reflected in 2025. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. MP Irian, MP Doran, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have two follow-up questions. The first one being, because I know that the question was posed in a general sense, however, I haven't received much clear answers from the individual ministers. So I'll do it per ministry. How many persons do you have within the ministry that are currently working outside of their function, and are they being properly compensated? And the other question is, how far along is the ministry with the STA? I know it has been a discussion for over a decade, but even in our time, there's been a lot of discussion with the former minister as well, former ministers. I would like to know, is there any concrete plan from the ministry as to potential actual start date? Because I know the foundation was launched years back, but the mystery remains, when will we start? What is the goal in terms of the start date for the STA? Thank you, Madam Chair Lady, for the opportunity.
Thank you, MP Doran. MP York, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Minister, if I were you, Madam Chair, a lot of times we sit back, both sides of the room, and we say, you know, something is not possible, or why is not something possible, or why are we not doing something, or we can't do something because of X, Y, and Z. You know, both sides of the room are guilty in that. A lot of times a step is being skipped. What are we doing to get ready for that position in order to do that down the road? So, for example, the Winair idea was pulled off the table. Reason being at the time, being used at the time, lack of legislation. What is being done with that legislation moving forward, in the sense of, are we getting ourselves prepared in the event of us ever wanting to sell the shares of Winair or any other entity of that magnitude? So what is the state of affairs when it comes to legislation, if the legislation if it's even being made or have plans to be made, and what other plans are where that is concerned? Thank you.
Thank you, MP York. MP La Cruz, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Madam Chair Lady, through you, I'd like to echo a statement made before, and that branch to offer it also to the Minister of TIAT as a think team put together with Parliament and all ministers to come up with ideas to bring some extra monies to the coffers. Because we're all here on this side asking what are the plans, but I know that most of us here have ideas. So if the minister is open to the idea, I am definitely, Minister Otley, also open to bringing some of those ideas over to the minister. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, MP La Cruz, for that offer to the minister. Thank you, members of Parliament. Minister, just briefly, some additions to some of the questions posed. The reason why I was able to so quickly forward the investment and diversification policy / guide of government is because I had it actually at hand to ask the ministry, given that policy plan and the recommended steps, is there an implementation plan of the ministry with respect to the particular items that are being proposed? And if not, can such be made, especially in the context of when we get to the 2025 budget, so that where funds are necessary to execute certain parts of this investment and diversification guide, that then it can be reflected in the budget and we can have the discussion on that. I can be short and ask the same thing regarding the agriculture policy that is also there on the books, a very comprehensive one. Can we identify the steps to be taken on an annual basis so that we can see them reflected where necessary in the budget? And Minister, referring to the agriculture policy and your efforts in the area of agriculture, I want to know if the ministry is aware of the recent article written by the local expert in this area, and that is Mr. Barefoots, with respect to the effects of the invasive species on St. Martin on agriculture, the devastating effects of the invasive species on St. Martin, and right now thriving on St. Martin, and the effects of these species on agriculture. If not, if the ministry is not aware of it, I can have this sent immediately to the ministry. It's extremely important what is written in that latest report by our local expert. Thank you, Minister, for your response regarding the vendors on the Ring Road and Pondfield Road. I think this is something that you really need to keep your finger on the pulse of the developments there. The Minister, I read recently an article by Turning Point regarding an offer made to them and their response to that offer coming from a group, a company that either has or is expecting permission to have something to do in the area of cannabis. So whether they're getting the permission to grow, to whatever, to market, whatever it is. And I truly could not understand exactly what Turning Point was really saying about their interaction with the group. And if you can provide some explanation there too. Minister, with respect to SME development and in the budget, there is, of course, we also have a policy on SME development. Are there any reports as to the execution of these policies or of this policy? Minister, the Gaming Control Board, the amount in our budget has been reduced with 91,000 guilders, but there's still a remaining 84,000 guilders on the budget. And what exactly, given that this plan is being prepared via the Landsverordening, what is that amount for in our budget? And then, Minister, I am going to ask it very carefully because I don't want to create any expectations that can't be met. So I'm asking, given the movements of the vendors at the Phillipsburg market, is there any way that they can be exempted from paying, or are they going to be, let me ask it this way, exempted from paying their monthly/annual fees where this matter is concerned because of their sort of uprooting, replacement, and everything that went along with that? Minister, I had asked, and it was responded by another minister, but not, I asked about the permits and the fees in connection with our law that regulates the so-called precario rechten, the use of public spaces and the fees that are associated with that. And I ask if these monies are being collected. Just recently, we saw where a firm made a statement regarding their payment made in order to put down advertisement boards, and that a board was vandalized, was whatever the case may be, but very specifically made fact that they are paying their fees. And my question is, are all of these fees collected for persons making use? Yes, it is not much, it's not huge amounts, but it also has a deterring and regulatory effect if persons have to ask permission to use public domain so that we don't get, a kind of a wild, wild west situation. So that's what I meant. And the answer that was given previously was related to the lottery booths, although I wasn't asking about that in this context. But since we're on the topic, I know that I think it was a LBHAM was established for the lottery booths. However, it had to go into effect by national decree. And I asked if that national decree has been issued. Minister, I want to chime in. I want to chime in on the discussion regarding the Union Road and just asking if there's any way that this road, given the developments that are taking place in Colby around the Union Road, if the Union Road Code, and of course this goes to the COM, not to you specifically, could be given some attention. Because of course, the developments that are taking place in Colby are a barometer, you can say, of development, at least one area of development, namely construction, but it is placing, we're going to be seeing some serious issues there with respect to traffic movement, etc., pedestrians, I mean, you name it. So I'm just asking if you could do a little plug in there on that matter. I also want to say, Minister, with all the discussion that has been going on about Winair shares, sale, no sale, and whatever, that there was a motion passed by Parliament when this matter came up in the budget about selling Winair shares. So I just wanted to put that out there, that there was a motion regarding being very, very careful and just not adding it in the budget to say you're collecting money. So, Minister, those were the few things I wanted to add, and I see MP Otley requesting the floor. MP, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My honorable colleague, MP Kotai, reminded me of something I wanted to ask. Speaking about EDC, can you provide an update on the 10.4 acres that was once transferred to EDC? I see a lot of people posting, especially for the week off, went to Aurora. And I don't expect the water park to be in the budget, but I would like to know the status of this land that was transferred to EDC. And does EDC still have ownership of this land, if it was, or if it was transferred out? Based on those answers, I'll reserve the rest of my questions pertaining to that particular land. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Otley. Minister Heiliger, I don't see any other questions for your ministry at this time. And would you immediately like to give a response in terms of your answers to be provided, when and how? Then I invite you to do that now, Minister.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady, and thank you, members of Parliament, for all your questions. I would like to take a day, maybe tomorrow, to return with some of the answers, with the questions posed. I would really need to take some time and put this throughput fee questions and causeway questions to rest, hopefully tomorrow. I need some time to answer it clearly, adequately, concisely, and I hope by tomorrow we can put these questions to rest. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you so much, Minister Heiliger, and members of Parliament, and also for the Minister's information. This is going to be our last session for this evening, for this Central Committee meeting. We will continue tomorrow starting at 10:30 a.m. and the sequence will be provided to members of Parliament later this evening, probably early tomorrow, as we get it from the Council of Ministers. And as the Minister indicated, Minister of TIAT indicated, she will be returning tomorrow as well with the answers to the questions. So tomorrow, members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, we will continue with the Central Committee meeting at 10:30 a.m. And I therefore here adjourn this meeting as I bid you all a pleasant evening. Meeting adjourned.